So my name is Mary, and I should start off, I want to tell you all, I'm not being paid to share my story with you. This isn't something I do for money. I do it because it seems to help people. And it's not for like the attention. To be honest, I'm shaking. I'm so terrified right now. Like, there's a lot of people here. And,
Ron doesn't pay us either. He owes us money.
But I do this because I have watched way too many people just give up. You know, they give up on their dreams, on their aspirations, on their own lives, and I'm sick of it. I can help in a very small way, and so I'm doing what I can. And I hope that you'll leave here going, man, that armless girl can do it. I got this. It's better for me to tell a story. I learned better that way. But before, I'm going to tell you how my little process for adapting and overcoming. Because sometimes, bad things happen, little bad things, big bad things, utterly crazy things will happen in your life. And if you're one of those people that you don't adapt too well, it's gonna be quite a trial for you. And I mean, how many of you have heard the phrase, just deal with it? Like it's that easy. So first, and then this is the hardest part for me personally, not for everyone. First, you have to not only identify the problem, but you have to accept and acknowledge that it's actually a problem. And what I mean by that is yeah, this is pretty obvious, but the first couple weeks I was like, no, it's not that bad, I'm fine. It's just my arms. But after that, it requires you swallowing your pride, and everyone in the military knows that's pretty tough. You learn so often in the military, in my experience, to bottle it all up. You don't want to burden the people you love and that you care about with your problems, so you keep it inside. That's a terrible plan. You have to acknowledge it, and oftentimes you have to ask for help. And that's okay. Seriously, it's okay to ask for help. And then after that, you have to come up with a purpose. What do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? You'll see it all the time with high school kids. Like, I want to be a veterinarian. Like, why do you want to do that? I love animals. You're going to have to put that little puppy down, right? I don't want to do it. Like, you have to come up with a purpose why you want to help animals, and you'll probably end up going into conservation instead. A lot of people think that when they have a goal that there's only one way to get there. That is not the case. So you find your purpose, you can create a plan. You can create the plan, you have to be sure that it's not such a rigid plan that you can't move a little, you can't adapt. You need to be able to adapt and roll with the punches. And this is stuff it's completely applicable to little things, big life changes, lifelong goals, or just what you're going to major in. So after you formulated your plan, comes most people's hardest part, and that is sticking with it, not quitting. Don't give up. Don't give up on yourself. Don't think you can't do it because you've hit an obstacle. Just keep trying. And when you get to that point where you're like, I can't do this anymore, just ask yourself why. Why can't you do it? Find that problem, identify that problem, and then address that. You don't have to quit. You don't have to give up on what you want to do. So now that I've told you the basics of dealing with it, I'm going to tell you how I got here. Because you don't learn how to do this just one day. Something bad goes wrong. This was not the first or the worst thing that ever happened to me. Mine started when I was a little girl. And I know you're like, oh, Mary, that has nothing to do with your arms. No, it really doesn't. But so many people have a childhood trauma that they tend to fall back on. They tend to make it an excuse. You know, it's the reason they can't advance. And when I was a little girl, I was probably 6 or 7, we had a guy in our trailer park, grew up very poor. And this guy was an utter dirtbag. He molested little kids. My sister and I were 2 of those little kids. And I didn't know it was wrong at the time, you know, because I was a little girl, I didn't understand. But when he threatened to kill my sister was when I realized it was bad. So I told my parents, who of course told the cops, who started an investigation, found out he'd done it to every little kid in the trailer court. And I was the only one that ever told. So he tried to kill me. He ran me over with his truck, tried to back over me, but a neighbor intervened and saved my life. But we went to trial, went away for a very long time. But I still had to deal with that. You know, as a little kid, it's kind of easier, you bounce, you know, but I still had to go through therapy. I went through a phase where I lied about absolutely everything because I thought if people knew anything about me, they'd have a weapon that they could use against me. And that's not healthy either. But these are situations that all people have, not just military. These things come up, and you have to learn to deal with it. So my family and I moved to a smaller town in Montana, and it's, like when I say small, I graduated with 20 kids. Like, it's itty bitty. But I still had the same thing you have in high school, a little high school sweetheart. I'm like, I'm gonna get engaged and get married, and that was really dumb. So I waited, you know, I'm like, oh, wait a year. And then I lost my scholarship, and then I'm sitting there, you know, with what I'd planned for life, you know, going down the drain, thinking, oh, I've got to give up on my goals to do this one stupid thing. And I almost did it. And then one day I'm chopping vegetables with my soon-to-be mother-in-law, and so nonchalantly, she goes, don't worry, Mary, I'm going to train you to be the perfect housewife. I was like, no. I joined the Army 2 weeks later, not even kidding. I was like, no. And I didn't know, you know, what I wanted to be when I grew up. But the Army gave me options. I could choose, and I'd have some time to like think about it, and I could still make a difference while I was mulling it over. So they offered me explosive ordnance disposal. And for those of you who don't know, it's the military's version of the bomb squad. And if I had known back then how awesome that job is, I'd have done it when I was 18. I'd have left like before I graduated. But it was, to this day, and I say that fully knowing what happens, the best job ever. But I went through my year of training. I actually got run over again in training. A taxi like parked on my leg, and I tried to rip it out and tore my Achilles tendon. I'm telling you, I'm the luckiest person on the planet. So I did my training, and I got stationed here at Fort Lewis at the 707th. And it was only a 13-man company, and I was the first female. And I've had a lot of people like, oh, it's such an accomplishment. No, it's just a fact. I wasn't the first female in the IOD, just here. It's not awesome. But when I got to my unit, I completely assimilated. Like, I became one of the guys. They called me Steve after 2 weeks. Like, I was just one of the brothers, you know, and I'm cool with that. Like, I loved it because I trained to one standard. You know, I never made excuses. They didn't, you know, do stuff for me. There was none of that crazy chivalry. We were all brothers. And it kept us in check. Everything was a competition, like to be better than each other. And in our job, you need that because your lives literally depend on each other. So we spent a year together before the deployment, and within that year, I don't know, like I relearned the meaning of family. Like you have your blood family, but in the military or in EOD was just, it's such a deeper brotherhood. So we deployed, and a lot of people think, oh, you go to Iraq and that's really scary. I mean, yeah, a little sometimes, not really. But like, I mean, to a point, like people shoot at you and you're like, what? Why? But war in EOD, I can't speak to the other MOSs, but in EOD, that's the best part of our job. Like that's where we absolutely shine. We get to make, you know, such a big difference over there. I was only there for 11 months and 4 days before I got blown up. And the rest of my unit was there for 15 months. In that 11 months and 4 days, just my team alone ran over 167 IEDs. That's not including caches, ordnance, other stuff you probably don't want to hear about. But it was, you know, that's the point where you look back and you go, I made a difference, you know? And in EOD, bombs don't discriminate. They don't care who they kill. Men, women, children, the elderly, innocents, combatants, it doesn't matter. They just destroy. And our job was to stop that, you know, and like a little bit of you sees yourself as a superhero in your head. There's like the cape billowing, like, yeah, I'm awesome. Yeah. But it was amazing. And then 11 months and 4 days into it, we got a call from the Iraqi army. They'd found an IED, and they're just driving around with it in their truck for some reason. And we're like, hey, take it to this disposal area. We're like, yeah, sure. No, they brought it to a school, as you do. And so we get out there, and we're like, legally, like, yeah, we could blow it up here. Morally, there are kids freaking everywhere. Like, no, we're not going to do that. So we take it apart, and I throw it up on my shoulder, and I bring it back to the truck, and I laid it down. When I thrown it up on my shoulder, my weapon was slung, and it kind of like flew around me, so it's choking me a bit on my sling. So I laid the device into the truck, and then I relinquished positive control of the device. And I fixed my weapon, and I looked up, and it was rocking. So I grabbed it, and it detonated. And anything could have happened in the last few seconds before it detonated. I could have scooted it, I could have pushed it, I could have dropped it, I could have just pissed it off. It's an explosive. What we think happened after talking to the forensic team was that it was on a lip, and before I actually got the chance to catch it, just because of the way my injuries were, it looked like I was still in the process. It fell off the lip, and that's what caused it to detonate. We didn't find out till later that it had a very, very sensitive explosive in it. So when it detonated, it threw me about 15 feet into a Humvee. It had sympathetically detonated a bag of explosives that was next to it, which actually saved my life. Because when it detonated, it threw me before the frag could really shred me. I mean, it got my face a bit, perforated my eardrums, lost my arms, but it gave my team time to get to me, put tourniquets on before I could bleed out, which only takes about 7 seconds. So they did that. My team leader ran up, asked me if I was okay, and I was like, hey, are you okay? Where's Mick? Because Mick was in the truck. He was married, had a kid, freaked me out. I thought he was dead. He's like, no, he's right here. Turns out he's the one that flew out after me and saved my life. But after that, like once they told me everybody was okay, like it was good, it was calm. I just lay there and talked to people, trying not to go into shock. Like they covered my eyes so I couldn't see everything, but as soon as they took my flak vest off, like I knew. I didn't admit it, you know, I was like, no, it just rung my bell. I was just really close, I'm fine. And then, you know, the flak vest comes off, I was like, oh my God, no. So I stayed awake all through the medevac. They got me to the cache. And the medevac is, I mean, anybody who's served knows, it got there in 14 minutes. That's unheard of. Like almost before I was ready to get loaded. So they get me to the cache. The doctor tells me, okay, we've got you, you're gonna be okay. And I'm like, all right, and I go to sleep. And I woke up in Germany, and the very first thing I did is like lifted my arm, I'm like, all right, that one's gone. Oh, it's even shorter. like really? like, so, woosad, got back to center. My now ex-husband was able to fly back with me. He's that half face in the chair there. That's me on the medevac, actually. That was pretty. So I got home, and I started doing my therapy, and it took 10 days for it to break me, for me to actually realize that this was a real problem. And I'll tell you how it broke me, and this is like the most embarrassing story of my life. I was 23 years old, hooked up to all sorts of machines and IVs and God knows how many drugs, and I finally had to go to the bathroom, and I went in there, and then I realized, how am I gonna do this? And I broke. I cried for a half an hour, just sitting on my little porcelain throne of shame, like really? I had to ask my husband to help me, and talk about swallowing your pride. Like, don't get me wrong. Everybody thinks, when I'm 80, 90, I'll be in old folks' home, like, come wipe my ass, But at 23, so my entire life changed in the time it takes a bomb to detonate. And my husband became my caretaker, which was such a switch in a dynamic. He eventually cheated on me, and I don't even blame him. We had such a nurse-patient kind of dynamic. Like, it wasn't only I that was affected by this. This kind of thing affects everyone around you. For a long time, I became a burden, on the people I cared about the most. And that was probably the hardest part to get past. I had to admit that I was a problem and that I had to learn to overcome it. So I did my therapy, and I started to notice that I was helping the other wounded soldiers. There are guys with missing legs that burned, forearm down. They've got issues with their hands. They're like, oh, how do you do it? And we start to compare notes. And at first I was like, oh, I'm not that bad off, And I walk in, and there's a guy, like, I'm not kidding, Matt. He's still a friend of mine to this day. He has no legs and only his left arm. And I walk in, and he's in a wheelchair, and he wheels back, and he looks at me, and he goes, oh, I'm glad I'm not you. And I'm like, dude, you have one arm. I'll never forget, he looks at me and goes, yeah, but I can still touch my dick. And I'm like, really? And then it dawns on me, I'm like, no. But, I learned there that you can be in a really, really bad situation, and it inspires other people to do more with their lives. And pretty soon I'm talking to, other veterans who'd lost their eyesight, and they're like, how do I get out of this? And I'm like, well, first you're gonna have to break down, get it out, admit that this sucks, and then embrace the suck and make a plan after that. And that kind of became my purpose. All of a sudden, I wasn't the one who needed help anymore. I was the one that was helping people. And that gave me a drive. So my husband and I, at the time, moved back up here to Washington because my unit was still here. They're still my brothers. This was where I felt home. And I decided I wanted to go back to college. And then my husband cheated on me for the 4th time, and I was like, all right, how long am I going to take this? And for a while I was like, why does he keep doing this? Blah, blah, what's wrong with me? Is it the arms? And no, it wasn't that. It was me. It was my self-esteem. I was letting that happen. Yeah, he's the cheater, whatever. I'm the one that's just taking it, And I realized it was because I had such a poor self-image. I legitimately thought, who's ever gonna love the scarred armless girl? I am so much baggage. No one wants to get involved with that, which is wrong, but that's what I thought. So finally I was, I sat down and I was like, well, what will I lose if I lose him? Am I even happy? No. And so we got a divorce, and I was happy. Even being alone and terrified, I was happier. And then it turns out that if you're a chick in EOD and you hug a bomb to save your team, the guys think you're hotter. So I got a date. So yeah, it actually wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. So I started dating an EOD tech, and it got pretty serious, and he gave me a lot of confidence, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go back to school. And I started college, and I was like, oh, this will be awesome. I remember school. And then, I was the one in class, every 5 seconds, what? Wait, no, I had an experience that doesn't go with that. Or, 5 million questions. And then you've got the 16-year-olds well, what soldiers really do in war? And you're like, So it was a culture shock for me. But it was going good, and I was in my third semester, and my boyfriend deployed with my unit, which was rough because it was my brothers and my boyfriend all going at the same time. And at the time, in EOD, it's not about if you lose somebody, it's who's it going to be, and that's just the reality of our job. So it became kind of stressful at first, and then in one weekend, 2 days, 5 of my friends were killed. And if anybody's ever lost one friend, man, it's rough, but 5, I don't care how strong you are, you will break. Like, I closed myself off, I stayed inside, I was like, I'm not doing anything. Every time my boyfriend called, like, hey, you fine? Yeah, I'm fine. Listen, I gotta go, I'm playing Dragon Age. Like, I didn't deal with it well, you know? So finally, I quit college. I was like, I'm gonna take this next semester off. I'm gonna take a break. This is too much for me. I'll go back when James, my boyfriend, comes back. So we get through that deployment. He comes back. 2 weeks later, I'm filling out the paperwork to start my new semester. I go in for an annual exam. They find a lump. I get diagnosed with stage 1 breast cancer. And I'm like sitting there and they're like, talk about bad things are cumulative. And it's a two-sided coin. The more that happens, the worse it gets. Because you start to ask yourself, what the hell did I do? Like, what did I do to deserve this? But on the other side, the more bad things that happen, the better equipped you are to deal with bad things. You just have to learn from each bad thing rather than letting it destroy you, which is hard. It's not like you're just like, oh, this is the lesson. No, it takes years. So I went through chemo, and we formulated a plan. What are we going to do? What's the ultimate goal? Am I going to go back to college after this? Because stage 1 cancer is not that bad, but anybody tells you, oh, hey, you have cancer. I don't care what stage it is. It's like getting punched in the stomach. Like, really? Why? Oh. So when I was, going through chemo, I was posting all over on Facebook, like, hey, this is updates, whatever. But I'm not like that person who's like, oh, my cancer is awful, guys, pity me. I'm like, holy crap, I hate chemo Mondays. Like, it's just, it was lighthearted, still kind of real, but lighthearted. And it was helping people. It was helping them deal with it, because there's this armless girl going through chemo, just got divorced. And like, how do you do it without losing your mind? Like, well, beer and video games. And then all of a sudden, I started getting calls from people that I didn't even know, just asking me for help. How are you going through this? What would you do in this situation? And that kind of became my day-to-day, was helping other people. So I switched my major from forensic psychology and forensics to just psychology, so that I could help more people. I mean, I have the experience, but now I need the knowledge. As I started doing that, I started writing a book, which I don't know if anybody's ever written a book about themselves. It's really freaking weird. Like, there's times, like, everybody makes mistakes in life, and when you think about it, you're like, oh, that was dumb. But when you write it down, you're like, oh, that's so dumb. What was I thinking? And then you drink more. So it kind of became my thing. I started, speaking, and I'm an introvert. Like, after this, I'm gonna go sit in my man cave and play video games and just ignore the world, because I get peopled out. I get scared of this kind of stuff. But again, it's a purpose. It's what's given me a drive. It keeps me going out, and every veteran needs that. Like, especially, I've talked to 3 of you now, that you get out and you lose your purpose, and then it's so easy to fall into that hole, to trap yourself in a box where no one else can touch you. You've already done what you wanted to do in life, and you lose yourself. I don't have to tell you the suicide epidemic. It's a freaking plague on the military, and it's exactly that. People lose their purpose, and they all go about it in different ways. I can't stress finding a purpose enough in life. It keeps you going, and that's important. It helped me live again, and I don't mean just survive, just existing, doing my thing. No, it helped me live again. I drive, I cook, I play video games. Like, some would call it an addiction, but whatever, semantics. But I've become me again. I've become whole. I'm not just this dependent, sad little husk of a human that has to ask for help with everything. Yeah, I still ask for help with stuff, but I'm independent. people ask me for help too. I've become, a productive member of society to a point. And it's something that, because I decided long ago that my bad experiences, my bad situations would not define me. I wouldn't let them break me. Yeah, I would learn from them, and you have to keep them with you, otherwise you'll do it again. But I wouldn't let it change me. And so I'll quit with this. The father of analytical psychology, Carl Jung, once said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." And so I put it to you to choose what you are going to become and go after it. That's all. I'm done.
Thank you. Hey, we have some Q&As. Anybody? I asked Mary, is there any questions that are off limits? And she says no.
Yeah, no, fire away.
Fire away. Any questions? Come on.
Well, I know that there's people who are like at that point in their lives where they're considering suicide, or they're dying by suicide, and they call you. Have you, through your training, is there some specific places you've gone to help with training for that? Or?
There's a couple sites that you can go to that they offer free, I think it's an 80-hour course on suicide prevention for people who want to work on hotlines and stuff. If you give me your email after this, I don't know it off the top of my head, but I can get it for you. And it just gives you training on how to talk people down. Because, especially in the military, you tend to be like, suck it up. But you can't do that. Don't do that. But yeah, there's websites, there's classes. There's actually, little local satellite places that you can get the training at. Other than that, I would just college.
Or you want to be certified or something?
To a point, you don't necessarily need a degree to help people. With me, it's different because I've got a lot of life experience, and especially veterans, they tend to value that more than a degree. Because somebody with a doctorate, be like, well, here's what you need to do, and be like, Doc, what have you done? When have you ever been through it?
It's your humor. That was why I read an article about you. Was that
Oh,
you have your, they appreciate your dark humor, and I know that. And I go into a lot of tough situations, and that's always the thing that I bring to it is that when you're not laughing or belittling anything like that, but it's always that humor that tends to break their training. They're on a sparring down, and if you can make them laugh, then you've got a chink.
Yeah, no, humor is so important in survival. Like in anything, like you go through a bad situation, you can be that person who laughs about it in 5 years, or you can just keep crying about it for the rest of your life. Personally, I prefer to laugh. Like, this isn't like new. I've always been like dark humored, but now I've got more terrible arm puns that I can use.
Thank you so much.
Go ahead.
As you know, there was a lot of bad headlines about the VA many months ago. How was your experience with the VA?
My experience has been phenomenal, but in all honesty, it's not like if I walk up, they're gonna be like, you're faking it. Like, I hate to say it, they send the armless girl away. That's really bad PR. But I have had friends that have had just a terrible experience. Partially due to them not going to their appointments, not being honest with their docs, and partially due to just falling through the cracks. But mine personally has been phenomenal.
Did you go through an anger, rage phase, and if you did, would you care to discuss that at all, and how you got through that?
Yeah, probably, I only spent 2 weeks in the hospital. I'm a real quick healer, but about the first week after the hospital, I had like that big breakdown that wasn't just, sad because I couldn't do one thing. Like, it was full on rage. And it, you cry, you scream, you hate the whole world, because why you and not them? But that's something that you have to go through. You have to. If you bottle that up, when you finally blow, you might not survive it. And now, like, you know, especially in therapy, I would try something 5, 10, 100 freaking times, and it would just keep failing. And, you know, I just keep telling myself, like, one more try, and then you hit that wall. And I'm not kidding. I would go into a room, shut the door, and I would scream and stomp my feet like flash dance. And then I'd be like, all right, let's try this again. And go back out there and submit myself to more torture, you know, until I finally got it. But man, rage happens. I prefer to rage on my own because, you know, then people can't be like, you were crazy. Like, but yeah. Is that, do you want?
I actually did have a follow-up is in regards to, you know, they talk about forgiveness and, you know, that helps with addictions, and sometimes our addictions are, you know, running from something, and that addictions are forgiveness is what sets us free. In one of your cases, I could see where, but how do you forgive that? Well, I mean, you just giving God the bird, or, you know, like, and say, okay, I'm not mad at you anymore, dude? Or
To me, the only ones that should ever bear the burden of the blame for what happened to me was the bomb makers, the terrorists themselves. And I've had to forgive people for it. My medic, my teammate, my team leader, they all blame themselves. Survivor's guilt's real, you know, and they went into a dark, dark place because of it. And I had to spend years with my teammate because he was a bigger dude, you know, and so when we were working on the device, you know, I grabbed it and threw it up on my shoulder, and our security team was kind of like, you know, making jokes because we'd all worked together for about a year, and they knew I didn't need help, but they're like, oh, you're gonna let that little girl carry that big ass bomb? And he's like, she's got it. And then, you know, I lose my arm. So he, you know, to him, he was like, I should have taken it. And that was never his fault. It was my job. You know, it's something that I accepted. I always knew that I could die as an EOD tech. I was always willing to give my life for my brothers. Why wouldn't I be willing to give my arms for them?
I actually had to leave to go teach, but I wanted to just say that listening to your story it was just so inspirational. I really, really do like the perspective that you can sort of get hit with something, and instead of just kind of having that be a downward path, you just simply sort of see it as almost like a strength building exercise. So I really want to say that was inspirational. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Now I'm going to smile all day.
In your man cave.
Yep.
Hey, Mary, what keeps you going? Is there a higher being that you pray to, or just what keeps you going?
I'm not particularly religious.
Although I will say that it's important to find your center. I do get overwhelmed by stuff. But when that happens, I just, because I'm an introvert, you know, a lot of people, if they have God, if they have, you know, what religion, they have their friends. That's what brings them back to center. For me, it's just being alone, reading some comic books, playing a video game, doing something that's kind of always been comfortable to me. That just kind of makes me feel back in my bubble, and I'm good. Yeah, even, you know, everybody says there's no atheist in a foxhole. I didn't even pray on the medevac. Like, just didn't occur to me, I guess. Yeah. Is that weird? Sorry. like you got really quiet. I'm like, I'm not an atheist. Just
Not at all. Would you do it again?
Oh yeah. Oh, are you kidding? If they give me bionic arms, I'd be signing that line tomorrow. I mean, they got to be like Luke Skywalker arms, but. Anyone else?
So is EOD a different animal than as opposed to?
We walk around with our hands in our pockets. I chewed out a colonel on site once because this idiot. We get up to this. I know, right? I'm going to tell you this story now. So this guy, we roll up to an IED that we'd been called out for. 45 minutes it took us to get out there because our security just takes a while. And we get up there, and it's like for me to that little black thing away, and there's a guy just pointing at it, just standing there. And there's another guy next to him. We park pretty far away. And so I like grab our PA system. I'm like, is that the device? And the guy goes, and I go, get away from the device. And he's like, what? And I'm like, oh, this mother. And so I kick my door open, and I'm like, check. And I get out, and I run up to him. And as I get up there, I realize he's shiny. And And he's got this little E2 next to him holding security. Remind you, it is 2 in the afternoon in Iraq, and the IED is in a giant hole. We don't need him to point at anything. It's right there, dude, we got it. And he's like, well, you need to know where it is. And like, I knife-handed him. I'm like screaming in his face. I'm like, I don't care if you kill yourself, but if he gets killed because he doesn't know what's going on, like, do you know when this is gonna go off? Do you even know it's a bomb? Do you? Like, this, yeah, like you don't get to do that in other MOSs. Like, but you get on site with a bomb and you're like, I am the subject matter expert. Bow. I'm just kidding. We're not that big-headed.
So what do you want to do as far as, like, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
The next 5 years? Well, we're moving to Florida because my husband got a teaching gig at IOD school. Oh yeah, the boyfriend, he proposed. It was sweet. So, yeah.
Discount on rain? No?
Yeah, I know, right? I don't wear it in public.
Wow. He's a Marine.
Awesome. I promise I'm not offended. But yeah, we're going to be doing that. I'm helping start up like a satellite charity. It's not a new charity. It's one that raises funds and gives to other charities. Because there's plenty of charities, I've got nothing new to offer to that. And then I've got to finish this book, which means I have to write this book. But yeah, and then I don't know, this public speaking thing has been kind of really kicking up lately. But it's good though, because it breaks me out of my shell, and that's important in life, try new things, even if it makes you uncomfortable. Actually, especially if it makes you uncomfortable, but not that uncomfortable. That's it. Like my biggest thing in life is just helping people, and mostly I try to be open for that. Yeah.
Oh, we got 2 back to back. Go in the back first.
Were you a candidate for prosthetics?
Oh yeah, I have
One that I use for driving, but the thing is, like, I don't have elbows, and that to use an elbow you need a whole set of muscles for it. So that takes away from the functionality of the wrist and the hand, claw, whatever. So I use the one for driving, and it's just comes off right here, and it's just a hook, body powered. I don't want anything that can fail in traffic. But I did like the bionic one, the Myoelectric one for a while, and it's just not my jam. Go ahead, sorry.
By the way, terrific presentation. You're a terrific speaker, and I think that's a great career choice for you going forward. And I'm just wondering if you've had a chance to speak to kids at all about your life experiences.
only at my high school.
Well, and the elementary school too. That one's harder for me because I swear a lot. Yeah.
I'd be happy to be a proofreader before. But you have a compelling story to tell, and I think I think kids would really benefit from hearing your message.
I agree, especially today's time.
Yeah,
Kids.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I also think you could moonlight as a stand-up comedian.
Good.
I have to ask, because I see the shirt you're wearing, I saw a couple of the pictures. And I'm thinking there's a Vibe business opportunity here. How many T-Rex t-shirts do you have?
Like a dozen?
So when you go on the speaking tour, I think, you set up the concession, you have those.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. Trademark it, you got it. That's great. That's a great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions? I have one more question, and we'll start off. But when a lot of Vietnam vets will go back to Vietnam to basically forgive and forget type of thing. Would you want to go back to Iraq and just?
I feel like it's different for me. I don't blame the Iraqis or the people. I blame the insurgents, the terrorists. Man, this is being recorded, but whatever. I'm sorry. Like, Iraq was a shithole. like there was trash that lined the road that's taller than me for days, and just it smelled awful. The dust storms were terrible. I'm cool.
So, any more questions, anybody? But
So you mentioned, that you have significant, but I'm really curious, parents' heart. How are your parents or your sisters, your immediate family? How are you connected, and are they?
They're pretty good. My mom went a little crazy for a while and was like, oh, the Pentagon has this pixie dust that they keep in a secret lab that will grow your arms back. I'm like, no, Ma, that doesn't exist. But, and she fainted when she first saw me, but I gather that's pretty a natural reaction. I don't have kids or anything, but I think I'd probably faint too. I think it helped them, just seeing me be like happy and spunky and the same as I was before. Like at first, they were, actually all my friends, my family, they're all like really kind of, take a step back, like, hey, Mary, you okay? I'm like, I'm not gonna bite your head off, I'm good. But after that, they're fine. Actually, my dad, every now and again, he'll be doing something and he'll still toss something to me, and I'll just like let it hit me in the chest, be like, really, Dad? Yeah.
So there's no more questions. I'd like to present Mary with a T-Rex. Because she's PCSing to Florida, right? Florida. We just want her to remember UW Tacoma. So here's the T-Rex. And also a UW scarf. Like she really needs it in Florida, right? But anyway, then we also want you to remember Tacoma. So I bought you a T-shirt that says Paramount Tacoma. So
That's
it's
awesome.
Small, but it should fit.
Don't worry, I washed everything on hot.
Okay.
It'll get smaller.
Okay, so then also, it is Grit City here, right? So we got the brass knuckles. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And as you guys probably know, Mary likes to drink coffee, so we got her 2 mugs for UW Tacoma coffee mug.
Thank you.
Then I went to our advancement people, and they started giving me swag, and they gave me a pen. I go, really? A pen? What the hell is she gonna do with a pen? But it has the stylus on it, so it's like. But anyway, hey Mary, thank you. What a true American. I mean, I appreciate you, and you always have a family here. Okay.
Thank you.
All
I'm gonna name my T-Rex fingers.